Okay, I'd like to call the March 2nd, no, we're not March, we're April 6th, 2021 bid board meeting to order. We have a quorum, actually everybody is here, that's great.
No Herb.
No Herb. What?
No Herb.
Oh yeah, missing Herb. I think Herb is in Florida. We have the approval of the minutes of March 2nd.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 1 on the agenda is a financial report. Jess?
Yep, so in your packet, the financial report really didn't have much activity in March, which is not uncommon. A lot of it comes soon as landscaping is on our agenda today. We are still awaiting our bill from David J. Frank for the removal of the decorations. So Mike and I are planning to have a meeting with our contact there. His name is Chadwick, to talk through 2021 decorations and then also get that squared away. So otherwise, it was just electricity costs for this month for the roof line lights. That's it.
Is David J. Frank going to continue to be taking down, putting up, taking down? I couldn't.
As far as I know,
It's
yes.
okay, I just couldn't.
If there's another idea or.
No, I wasn't sure if we talked about the city taking that over eventually or not, but that would be an awful lot to put on now.
I don't think the city could. That's a pretty big impact.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, it's pretty extensive.
Yeah, I would think so. Okay.
So the only question I have on this is, now that we're in April, do we know how much of it, has the whole tax collection been done and is it complete?
It has.
So we have everything?
Yes, it's been complete. It's reflected in the actual within the revenue.
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, sorry.
I have a motion to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2, presentation by Rob Steiner for the roof line lights.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How you doing? So my first question would be, how much time do I have?
30 seconds?
30
enough?
seconds, all right. It's an elevator speech, all right.
Executive summary.
Yep, so I'm here to answer any and all questions that you guys may have in regards to the options. Well, I can also give you, if you'd like, a brief history of the roof line lights. So is everybody aware of the kind of the history of as far as how they're powered, where they came from, the repairs in the past? Or would you like me to?
I think we should just bring everybody up to speed so
Sure.
everyone knows where we're at.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So the roof line lights were installed, and I don't have the year exactly in front of me, but through the years, they've fallen in quite a bit of disrepair. And as you can see, as you go down, you see different sections that are out. You kind of wonder, is it just the bulb or is it the socket itself? So we were approached, I think about 8 years ago, to just go through and replace all the bulbs. So we would go through and we would do this at night. We get an articulating lift and we have 2 guys. We have to do it at night because otherwise we'd have to work over cars and we can't do that. So we go through the middle of the night and we go and start on one end and go to the other. So that was the first time that we had done that. Another 4 years goes by and again falls in disrepair where we need to get back to a properly lit system. At that time, it was brought to us and go, well, how are these things even powered? Where do things, what if we want to fix it? The city electrician wants to fix it, or someone through the bid association wants to fix it. We went through and did 2 things. We went through and did the same thing we did last time, replaced every single light bulb from one end to the other, even when they're working. So we took the ones out that are working, and the reason that we do that is because they're incandescent lamps. Incandescent lamps, the life of an incandescent lamp, let's say for those, somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 hours, where an LED you can get up to 50,000 hours, 70,000 hours. The incandescent lamps, if we were to only go through and replace the ones that weren't working, you know what would happen a month later is you'd start having the ones that were working start to go out. So since we're there, we just take every single one out, throw them in a bucket, and grab the new ones, and we just go from one end to the other. At that time, what we wanted to do was find where the power was coming from. It comes from 15 different panels. So throughout downtown, because there's different breaks in buildings, there's different islands of buildings, there's different streets that break everything apart. There is 15 individual electrical services with a panel and an individual time clock. And I think that's one of the issues that you guys have at times, is when you go downtown and you look and there's an entire section that's out, something's wrong with either the timer, the circuit breaker that feeds that circuit itself, or something is gotta be something we need to trust. Someone has to troubleshoot that section. It's not, if there's one little section on a building that's out, that could be something localized to that building. But I've seen it through the last couple months where you've got an entire block, let's say, that's out. Well, that's because all of these are individually fed with individual services. It poses an immense challenge. Back then, when this was first put up, there was no other choice. I mean, you'd have to go under the street and over, and I mean, you're talking about an incredible expense to tie them all together. Now we can look at some wireless options that would be able to control everything together. So we put together a plan. One of the plans that we were paid to do from the bid was to basically lay this whole thing out. So now you guys have in your possession a complete layout of the downtown, where every panel is located, where every time clock is. They're all labeled with engraved labels, where the circuits are coming from, how many transformers there are, where the transformers are located on the rooftops, pictures of those transformers. It's all tied together. So you have this, I want to say, 10-page plan document that we created for you that shows someone where these would go. And what the value of that is if you were to have, let's say, a city electrician, or you have somebody come in and say, hey, this entire section is out, they would be able to immediately go to the location that it's fed from and start troubleshooting. In the past, it was a wild goose chase. You'd be running around trying to find where everything is coming from. So that is the history of that. So we're back to years go by and light bulbs are out. You know, the small, very, very small incandescent lamps are out. One goes, well, do they make LEDs that just plug right in and twist in and we can move on from there? They do not. So we have looked at that every time we've done this, and I looked at it again because technologies do change. You know, they could have had some demand for it and created some supply for it, and that's just not the case. There is no demand for those tiny LED bulbs in an LED, so they do not make them. So what we did was we created two options, and you have those prices. One would be the option for continuing to replace these. So we don't go and replace, again, just the ones that are out. We start at one end and go to the other. Last time we started with 6,000 lamps and we had to purchase another 500. So this time we just quoted the 6,500 lamps. So we have the 6,500 lamps. We include an articulating lift. We have two guys, one for moving safety barriers. They do sometimes get one guy on the rooftop, and it's fairly efficient. It does take time. We need to be in communication with somebody, whoever is the lead from the bid, that we would notify them of where we are and where we're going, you know, so that you're aware of how we're progressing through the night, because we will block off large sections. So that we go from one end to the other. Like I said, we've got swing shift labor in there. There are sections that do not work. They're whether a bird hit them, or hail, or snow, or ice, or something damaged them beyond repair. There are some sockets, some sections that just don't work. So you will never have a 100%, you know, every single lamp working at the end of this. It's not many, but there is some. So there is some of that as you go through that. So this would be the price to kind of do the status quo. Go back and put the incandescent lamps in. Now remember, the incandescent lamp, the rated life is somewhere between that 3,000 and 5,000 an hour. There are individual filaments in it. They're subject to vibration, failing, and that's where you see a substantial amount of what you've got now. The other option would be to And you could really do both to get them up and going, but the other option would be to replace with LED. So how do you do that? And what do you know, it's a big expense, and you want to be able to find out the right way to do that. You could hire an engineering firm, which I think would cost about 2 to 3 times what our proposal is here, or we would hire Steiner Electric. We would come through and do the engineering and put it and give it back to you basically, and back to the city essentially. And they would put it out for bid. It doesn't guarantee that we would get the job. We would bid it just like everybody else. But we would start with the end in mind. You know, what do you guys want? Do you want the cheapest system? Do you want the most expensive system? Do you want the nicest? I think you just want it to look right and last a long time and reduce your maintenance costs. So we would start with, someone had mentioned that in talking with Jay and Jess, that the Hartford lights were something that people had liked. I don't know what they look like. I'd have to kind of take a look at them. I don't know if they're the bigger style LED lamp or what they look like. So we would kind of look at that. We'd look at a few different options. But basically we would start with at the very shell of what you have and get to a point where we're showing you demonstration fixtures that you would agree upon. So you would actually see a demo live downtown in 2 different areas. We'd pick some section, maybe on top of your building or something like that, that we would show, and everybody would say, okay, this is exactly what we're looking for. I actually really like what you guys have. I don't think bigger bulbs would be the way to go. I think that smaller look with that orange, lower on the color spectrum style light would be the way to go. We would go out to lighting reps, so we would skip the distributor level. In the electrical world, there's us, and then there's the distributor level, and then there's the lighting reps. We have to buy from the distributor level, but we can go right to the lighting reps and say, hey, this is what we're wanting. Give us some options. And then we start looking at it. Well, they give us, an extremely expensive option. We don't want that. We need something more economical. So we kind of fit within your budget to give you a demonstration of what you're looking for. So we would put those fixtures up. After you guys would approve the style fixtures, so let's say we have 2 different demo fixtures and you pick option B. We would then completely draw up this, so using our plans from before, draw up a new system that said, okay, contractors to bid on this, you need to include all of this and lay out exactly what they need on the plan so that they can actually bid that. So that would be a phase 1 bid that we would put together, that you guys would have the contractors basically in a public bidding fashion put together bids to remove the existing fixtures, remove the existing transformers, install new drivers which drive the LED light fixtures, and install all new LED across everything that we'd want. So it would even be where I'd come down there, we'd look through the entire section. Let's say there's an area on your building that, there's a peak that really would look nice to, we could put an option together that says, hey, add something to that peak. We could do that whole thing throughout the down. If there's missing buildings, we could say, why is that building missing? Should it be added to this? And we can put it as options, we can put it in the base bid. We have all of those types of scenarios to go through. It is a process. It is something that would take quite a while to go through and make sure that we're on the same page. Then, there's a lot more to that, but the documents would basically be created for phasing. I forgot to mention phase 2. We would come through and take drone pictures of the east side, so on the river side of all those buildings, and see what we could do about, what would the cost be to do that side? Because the river walk's being redone, it's going to be incredibly beautiful when it's done. So what would phase 2 actually cost? Would it be affordable now? That's up to you guys, but at the same time, you'd actually have a price put together that would allow you to budget that into the future. So that section would be a totally separate price. Phase 2, we'd take drone pictures going down every one of the buildings, and then it would show on the plans, this is exactly what you need to do and how things get controlled. Or different options would be color changing. Can we do LED, many of the lights can change any color you want with, an app on your phone. But that would get into a much larger control scenario. So what are our control options wirelessly? One of the, a pet peeve of an electrician, when you go down and you see the lights turn on you know, 1 minute here and 5 minutes later here and 10 minutes later here, and this one's broken, so this one doesn't turn on. Well, how can we get all 15 of these locations to talk to one another? So there are definite options out there that we can wirelessly connect these things together. Again, I wouldn't recommend it on a base bid price because you may put yourself over your budget, but we can definitely put that together as an option that you guys can see, okay, it's gonna cost $25,000 to control these things together. When you can control them together, you can then operate them and change their color as well. I don't know if that's something that's interesting to the downtown. You know, I personally like that warm style, old 50s look, you know, that they have now. Changing them to, you know, pink on Valentine's Day and green on St. Patrick's Day, is it worth, you know, $20,000? And I'm just throwing that number out there. That's for you to decide. So we would put together high-level budgets for you as well. As we're going through this, we would actually mimic the pricing. What is this actually going to cost? Because if we put a price out there and it's $500,000 and you're like, well, that's crazy, that we don't have that. Well, let's know that on the front end before we waste a bunch of contractors' time and put it out for a public bid. Let's put together the bid documents as well as give you a high-level budget so you can say, okay, that's somewhere within our range. Let's put it out for bid. We would meet with you, go over all the documents ahead of time before we would hand them over, and then hand them over for final approval, and then you would send them out for a public bid. So I hope that makes sense. That was a lot. I do, you know, the controls thing is something that could be done over time in the future. You know, right now they are turning on and off with the timers that you have. It's not ideal by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it can be upgraded over time as well. But you would have those prices and those budgets within this document. Yes?
It's exciting to talk about the possibility of the future. I kind of started this whole ball rolling several months ago, and I was admiring the downtown holiday lights, and I just happened to notice bulbs were out, and I thought, let's find out what the cost is. If you wouldn't mind helping me go backwards a little bit to who has possession of that plan that you mentioned is currently in the 10-page plan that you did from the last time? Do you know who has possession of that?
I am trying to remember who.
We have that document.
You have it somewhere?
It is a public record, but I don't know who commissioned it the first time.
The bid did.
We did,
I know
yeah.
you did, but we sent it to you guys, we sent it to someone from the city that we worked with at that time.
Okay, but somebody has it.
The city
Okay.
absolutely
Okay.
has it, yes.
Okay.
And you guys can, if you don't, I will always have it on my server, so you can always ask for it again as well.
Do you know what date that was done? Was that 3 years ago, or? I don't, it seemed like 3 years,
Time
4?
flies, I
That was
think it's
like in
farther than that.
2017, I
Yeah.
think.
Okay.
4 or 5.
So from that point, you also did the full bulb replacement, like you said, the 6,500 bulbs, and so here we are 4 or 5 years-ish later, or whatever it is, 3, 4, 5 years, and some are out. I didn't actually count, it just, I kind of noticed now there's some spottiness, and that's what started the last conversation. Made sense to go back and revive everything with fresh bulbs. I'm just still curious. I mean, when a bulb is out in my home, I don't replace every bulb in my house. And you make a great point, but I'm just wondering, some of these prices set me back a little bit, just
Sure.
in exploration prices. Why wouldn't it be practical each and every other year to just come in and replace what's out?
Well, I guess I would put that back to you and say if it was at your house and your ceiling was 30 feet tall and you had to put scaffolding up, you'd probably replace every bulb in that room.
Okay, I have an articulating lift, I own one,
Sure.
so I'll give it to you, I'll let you have it for the day. If that's a big cost, it's $600 for a day, so I won't charge you a thing. So back to, why couldn't it just make sense to go in and just replace the bulbs that are out for now and amortize this cost, because this is 20 grand to replace a bunch of bulbs that still work for just a few that seem to be out.
It's
I'm just-
totally up to you. I think it's the
But we don't have a
investment
number, Rob, I don't mean to interrupt, but
Yeah.
I'm just wondering the number, if there's a way we could figure out that cost, because we're looking at 20 grand, 15 grand for exploration, hundreds of thousands for an LED system.
Right.
But what we don't know is what can get us back to just everything looking like it did after the first time, even though bulbs go out randomly at different times. Someone in the last meeting or so floated a great idea, which is if we explore the LED system, which we still can do, I think long-term it makes sense, we might have to explore a better funding way than just have it all in the bids back. We talked about fundraisers, all kinds of things. If we get it back to working order and let people see and remember how nice it looks, that gives us momentum to be able to find the dollars while we're also researching the cost. But for now, I would just love to see it look nice again and just replace the bulbs that are out. That's just kind of what my objective was. And I'm just curious what that would cost. Is it a night's work? Is it 2 nights?
No, it would be, I would think it would be multiple nights to move that lift around. The lifts are just, I mean, you can't block the whole downtown off, number one. So it would be hard for us to say, okay, well, no one enters and we're gonna try to go from one end to the other. The lifts move a little bit slower. I mean, I can take a look at it. It is a little bit difficult to go through and estimate, you know, is it 1,000 lamps that are out, or is it 1,500, or what is it actually? So we would have to kind of throw a ballpark at that. You guys could have whatever lamps are left over.
Would there be a
It's
cost for
just
us,
kind of-
Rob, to go around and just determine what, again, I'm trying to narrow down just to the comparison of cost. I see the 20, the 15, I get it. I know the LED is a big number. Is there any way we can just confirm what the cost would be of replacing what's out and how
Sure.
many? I mean, I'll go around and count them if I have to.
No, that's no problem. I can go down and take a look at it. I mean, it really, to me, it doesn't, it all depends on what your guys, what your thoughts are on the future going forward. And if you are going to try to do this next year, maybe the LED, I mean, that would make sense to do that. If it's going to take 3 years to put the LED in and fundraise and get everything, then to me, it would make sense to replace them all, because I do really think that if we just replace the ones that are out, in 3 months, 6 months, 8 months later, you're gonna be right back to where you were.
But here we are 4 years later, and it doesn't look that bad yet. I just happen to notice some are out. We disagree on that.
But
I just-
remember that they're only rated for a certain amount.
I get it.
So if you're rated between $3,000 and $5,000, and let's say you're at that $4,000 mark, well, that's why you're starting to see some of those failures. So you're gonna increase those failures much more rapidly going forward, because you're starting to begin to see that the lamps at the early stages of that rated life are failing now. Well, now you're gonna get into the average, and then you're gonna get into the ones that last the longest. But in the next year or two, you're going to start to increase those failures just because you're hitting your rated life.
I get it. Let me try this another way. I'm just a math guy. I see 20 grand to replace them all. Or if you came back and said, hey, so many are out, it'll take 3 grand, and we develop a plan that replaces it to LED in 3 years.
Sure.
And you come back each year and do that to get the lights just looking nice until we replace them. That's 9 grand. That's half of this bid. So I'm just looking for that number. That would really help me, since I'm the one that woke this whole subject.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with doing that. That wouldn't take me long at all. I just have to go down there at night and take a peek at it.
I would appreciate it. It would just help, because at this point, there's nothing to compare to. We can keep talking in circles, but to me, it's math and it's dollars for the bid. And that's our responsibility, is to spend it wisely. So
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Just so, Rob, go ahead. I appreciate being in the construction world. I appreciate your forward-looking approach to this, the way you present it. What I mean is, you know, I understand over time we've got this mismatch of electrical systems and 15 different panels, and this incandescent lamp feels like another Band-Aid on top of Band-Aids, Band-Aids, Band-Aids. If I sit here today, I walked up to this building very pridefully today because I can see the big picture with the Riverwalk starting on the other side, and now the Common Council approving the brewery, and I'm looking at big picture. What's West Bend gonna look like? Those aren't Band-Aid approaches, but yet we're talking about a Band-Aid approach. In your opinion, the incandescent lamps is another Band-Aid, I'm assuming? And should we be looking at your mock-up proposal here so that we can decide on something that fits the big picture and not necessarily what's going on today?
Nobody's debating that. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, I'm not arguing. I'm just
No, I was just
giving a
saying,
different
I just said that. Why don't we at least get to that point? Because he's got to take the time to do that. But I'd still like it to look nice until we get there.
Right, and
That's all.
that's correct. I mean, this proposal to get the LED documents together is gonna take some time. Because you're not gonna call this group together 3 times a month to discuss this. So it does take time to get, number one, get all the drawings done, and then have the discussions, go through them, get your approval together. So it could be both, basically. Yes, this is a Band-Aid, but it looks nicer. You know, as a resident of West Bend, I would like it to look nice too.
I'm sure this
So-
isn't
so-
appropriate, but if we all raised our hand and said, if the budget wasn't an issue, would we all want LED in the future?
Right.
Right? I mean, that's a no-brainer. It's just, we gotta get there, and we
So
gotta be
can I
able to
make
pay for it.
can I make a suggestion of, going off of what you're saying, is we're looking at 14,000, if I'm reading this right, $14,000 to design a new system, correct?
Well, it's
no.
correct, but it also creates bid documents that then go, I
Right.
don't know if you send it
So-
out or the city sends them out, but they
Right,
send them out.
but it designs the whole system and gets us to being able to find out what the final dollars are.
That's correct.
So my suggestion would be is we decide if we want to do that part of the process today, and then have Rob go back and answer Tony's questions, and then we can make a better educated decision on, do we do a full relamp this year to get us for 4 years? Or do we do, partial every year just to keep it functioning for whatever time? But get this process started so that we can see what the total cost is gonna be and get the study going. And then we can figure out how we wanna buy our time to maybe get it complete. But otherwise, if we kick the can down the street for another month to wait for that 3,000, we're another month behind on coming up with our total cost of, because I think everybody's in agreement, we need to do this to really figure out what our total end game is. So why don't we get that part done, and then let Rob go and do some more research on piecemeal, and then at the next meeting, we can have that conversation.
Good.
Just one quick question. In addition to the bulbs failing, what's the condition of the sockets and the hardware that's up there? It's been there for probably 20-some years.
That's a great question. The last time we went through to do the replacement, there was some substantial repairs that needed to be made. Several of them were made by roofers. Roofers would come through to re-roof the building, they'd tear them all off, they'd throw them on the roof and just do the roof. And so we're like, well, where are the lights? We look over the top of the parapet wall, and there they are laying there. There are many sockets that are just broken. And the system is kind of it's a wire way, it's a metal wire way with holes in it that pops apart, and then all of these wires are kind of linked together with these sides. It's nothing that you can just kind of take apart and just replace the socket really quick, and it's just, and we've talked to the manufacturer about it as well, because it was something we wanted to try to do, and it was a no-go from them. So there are areas that are just out, that are just not going to function properly. So it's of the total, it would be less than 10%. It's fairly low, but there are some sections that are in disrepair and not going to be able to be fixed. And then there are transformers that are on the rooftops. Many of these locations have 2-3 transformers. It is a fail point, but they're in fairly good shape. When we inspected everything, if there was some conduits that were broken and wires hanging out, that's all been repaired the last time we came through.
I think that section across from the theater has not worked for months.
And that may be as simple as the little timer that's there, taking the lock off, and the tab that turns them on and off, and sometimes they become loose and they fall to the bottom. I mean, it may be as simple as a 30-second replacement of the timer tabs. I mean, or the circuit breaker tripped, and we got to figure out why. Everybody likes to just turn the circuit breaker back on, but there's a reason that it went off. So what was that reason? Find it and repair it that way. But I would say that if that section is still out, the repair is probably in a 2-hour repair.
Is there at some point we start to get more challenged with replacement parts as the world's moving away from?
The only replacement parts you can get on these are bulbs. They do not sell this product anymore. They don't sell the pieces for them. They only sell the bulbs, and they're getting expensive. That's why this has gone up so much. It's the supply and the demand. Everybody's LED now. I mean, we haven't sold a building with a fluorescent light in the ceiling. I don't know how long. So supply and demand, the demand has dropped off completely on lamps like this. So the supply has too, and then the price goes up.
So even right now, like if a building, their lights go out, who pays for the replacement of that? Is it the building owner or is it just left?
It's
like,
left in
burned out?
disrepair until we have this
Until we have-
conversation.
So the answer to that is the bid agreed to take over the maintenance of the lights. The fixtures and the lights and everything are still owned by the Downtown Association. But the bid agreed to, when we did this upgrade.
I thought we sold it to you guys for like $1.
No, the city didn't want it and the bid didn't want it. So they're still owned by the Downtown Association.
So the advantage to that is what?
Well, the
I mean, all the Downtown Association now is party planners. They have no funding, so that's all they do. So
Right,
what
but-
difference would it make if they?
Well, the difference is the city didn't want to take ownership and the bid can't take ownership. So that's why they still maintain the ownership of them and they still hold all of the property right leases for the fixtures. So even for us to do the repair, we just have to have permission from the Downtown Association that they're okay with us, which I don't see that they're going to say no to.
Right.
So, but technically, they're still owned by the Downtown Association. The bid has agreed to take over the maintenance of them and paying the electrical for them. If we move forward with this, and that's the other component, is all of those building leases or whatever you want to call them will have to all be renegotiated and worked out with every single building owner. Because then it's going to have to come into the city side, and the city will have to agree to take ownership of them, and all that other stuff's going to go away. So there's a lot of moving parts besides just designing this. It's getting all of those building owners, and that's why some buildings do not have any lights on them. Like on the corner of where Old Settlers Park is, the owner of that building, when this was all done, would not allow the lights to go on their building. And that's why there's no lights on that building at all.
Is there a new building owner in that building
There's a new
now?
building owner in there now.
Well, I mean, I think if we're looking to become a historic district and all that, I think it's really important that we get a unified look in the downtown. So I think it probably is something, if we're gonna spend that kind of money, that we do get the current building owners on board and we make the move to get this going.
But that all takes time.
Right,
So,
I agree.
Yeah,
I
so,
agree.
and that's
Well,
great.
Yeah, I think the first step is to get to agree to do this 14.7, design the system, get it ready for RFP, find out from the city attorney probably what we need to do from a legal standpoint to get all these building owners on board. And then we figure out, okay, how do we come up with the funding to do it? But the first step is to figure out even what it's going to cost and, what's going to happen. And then we can take those next steps.
Rob, thanks for your time.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a question. Those 15, are they coming off the panels from the actual buildings?
No,
Okay.
they are all individual circuits, services, and they are all individual We Energies bills or invoices,
Okay.
and I believe you get them.
Yep.
Yep. So
They're
they,
listed out, every
Okay, so
panel.
they're all locked up, they all have city locks on them,
Okay.
they all are not charged to, an individual building tenant or anything like that.
That's good.
They have their own meters.
That's what our electricity costs in our financial report are for each month.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And do you think that the efficiency of the LED system would be, that we would still need those 15?
The problem is not the efficiency, it's the breaks in the buildings and the roads and the islanding of certain buildings. You wouldn't be able to go underneath roads and up in any economical way. It would all be wirelessly controlled. And I think since you have the infrastructure there, if you're paying, let's say, $5 a month in a meter charge from We Energies, it would take you 100 years to pay back anything of removing all those meters. to try and have them on one individual circuit. I think the best way to do this would be some kind of wireless control system where we would have modules or nodules up on top of buildings talking to one another that you wouldn't really see. We try to hide them and talk to each other going down the downtown. I have not done a system like that before. I know they exist within parking lots, and it can be done. But it would take some research on my side to do that. I'm actually looking forward to it because it'll teach me a little bit about it.
Percentage-wise, how much more affordable would it be to run an LED system every month?
So what we'll do is when we actually pick the product that you guys like, we will come up with the calculations of what your savings will be. So we will be able to calculate out what are you consuming now, and what will you be consuming, then put the hours of operation in, what you guys are being charged from the energy is probably 13 cents per kilowatt hour, and actually give you a return on investment for your, how much per month are you going to be saving electrically on these lamps.
And the maintenance.
And the maintenance is huge too. That's one of the reasons why when you see something like this to replace all of them, you can do the simple math, divide it by 4, and go, hey, that's probably my annual repair fee for that. I will also take this, once we do that math, I will take this to Focus on Energy and say, hey, is there any rebate money that the bid can get for this? I would say it's probably a little tough sledding on that, but it is something that we will definitely try once we have the actual calculations. If I go to them and say, hey, I'm thinking about this, that their first thing is going to be, we'll give you some more information into that. But we have the software, it's very simple. Once I have variable A and variable B, we plug them into the calculation and it shows your savings. So
I assume solar would be way too expensive for this situation.
yeah, if you're going to do something like that, you'd have to put battery packs in, store that energy during the day, and then put it into the lights at night. It would quadruple whatever you're looking at. Plus, you'd have a lot of different. I think your biggest hurdle would be, hey, building owner, I'd like to take your entire rooftop up with a section of solar panels, and I don't know if that's going to be the case. That's going to be something that they want. You'd have shading issues with different elevations. You'd have to pick the highest buildings to do that. It would be it'd be a challenge.
Tony, just as a reference, when we looked at this 4 years ago, it was, I think, around $1,500 to $2,000 in energy savings. It wasn't huge.
No, it won't be huge.
No.
I think the bigger savings is going to be the maintenance, but also we're going to get to a point of no return. So I guess we need to make some decisions of where we want to go here. We'll be going in circles so I'm looking for anybody to want to start some motion.
Can I ask a couple
Or
more
nothing.
questions?
Absolutely.
Yep.
So I had commented at the last meeting that some of this felt redundant from the research that was done 4 years ago. I remember a number being floated as a wild estimate, because that's reasonable. I mean, your experience had kind of a wild guess at that time. But recall, we all were just like, okay, we should probably go with just the current system for now and figure out a long-term plan, which we've never done. So now we're kind of talking about that all over again, which is cool because we do need to move to the future, but we still got to get there. So you made the point that the bid's responsibility is to maintain it. So that's all I was asking is, what does it cost to get there? And if we have to deal with business owners and all this other stuff, if it takes 1 or 2 years or whatever it takes, we need to get there. I think everybody agrees. In the meantime, can we keep it looking nice inexpensively? That's all I'm after. So do you recall, you mentioned that you did quite a bit of repair with the bulb replacement last time. There might be some more repair this time. Do you recall what that last bill was for this $6,500?
Yeah, the number 6,000 is in the back of my mind to do the repairs. There was a transformer or two that was out.
Well, plus the bulbs, Rob. It's just that, you remember the whole package?
I don't remember. That was, I think, like 17,000.
Okay, so it went from like 17, 18 to now 19 or 20.
Correct.
So because you referenced a big price increase, I was just, again, I'm a math guy. I
Right.
didn't get
No,
that number to base it
absolutely.
on.
I do not foresee many repairs like transformers and socket, like, broken wireways, things like that. We did, $6,000 worth of repairs is a lot. And I just I don't see that being the case again. There were broken conduits, there were broken flexible steel pipes that were into, going, that all has been taken care of. I would be very surprised if we were to go through and find a lot of damage between then and now. Maybe a roofer or two that came through in that amount of time, but I don't really foresee it.
One last question.
Yep.
Can you tell me, do you recall when you gave us that kind of best guesstimate? Can you throw a number out there? Just a wild guess of what LED, just a range?
My least favorite part of construction.
I'm asked to do it all the time.
guesses.
I'm asked to
especially
predict the market
today.
every day, so come on. You've got to have a reasonable guess. I remember, Jay, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but some number was floated last meeting, a range.
200, it was 200-some thousand
Of
dollars.
I wanna hear it
the
from
new
you.
LED, my best guess at this point in time, which is totally off the cuff, is a quarter
Yeah,
million.
that's all I want. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's,
Would you sign here?
yeah, right. The juice sign here, yeah. I think one of the things too is, we'll put together some options of buildings that are missing. One of the buildings that I really think should be done is as you get right, you've got 33 and Main Street right there, is that furniture store. I mean, why, any corner store, any corner leading into that area, just visually, I think should be done. But those buildings that are missing, I think the base bid for the LED would be 1 for 1. What do you got? We do the same exact thing. And then the different sections, okay, there's 8 different buildings that are missing. That's alternate number 1. What would it take to put LED on those buildings? Alternate number 2, wireless controls. Alternate number 3, color changing options. I think that there should be an alternate, and this is just completely my opinion. The post lights that are downtown, they're that very bright white 5,000 Kelvin light. I think you have a complete color clash with your beautiful sign, your outline lighting. You've got 5,000 Kelvin lighting and you've got 2,700 Kelvin lighting, and it doesn't look right. So if you want to look historic, then you would take those lights out, give them back to whoever owns them, and just screw a light bulb in that now those LEDs can come in that coloration that gets you to that 2,700. It would have to be high lumen so you can see. Obviously, we don't want to decrease the vision of a driver or walker. But again, that would then be an alternate. Alternates are completely arbitrary for you to decide whether you want to accept them or not. Because if you get approved for, let's say, $300,000, and the low bid comes in at $220, and your alternates add up to $295, and you can do it all, then that's, again, up to your discretion.
Alternate 3 will come with what happened last night of redoing Main Street.
What?
Well, we can do the TIF, and we can now start working on possibly redoing Main. That will include new lights,
Oh, that section of the roads getting redone? Sure.
hopefully.
Sure.
We'll see.
And then, obviously, I forgot the most important one would be phase 2, which would be the other side of the buildings. That actually is going to take a substantial amount of design time. To look through and say, hey, where are the panels? Can we feed these feed these lights from existing systems, and then take the drone pictures all the way down, turn those pictures into bid documents on a CAD drawing, and then get footages and everything for people to actually estimate what that would cost. And that phase 2 could be, 3 years down the road, you'll have a budget for it. It will probably most likely be more, but it would be at least you have a budget for that value.
So can I make a motion?
Yeah, I've been waiting.
You're a patient man, but I have questions, so you'll be more
I
patient.
know that.
So we'll make a motion then to approve the $14,700 quote for exploring LED lighting with the condition that next meeting, you'll be back to tell us how many bulbs it would take to replace for now and a cost.
Sure. I can send that
Second.
to Jay and Jess if you want.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? What?
I would just say we can't go anywhere without this.
Yeah. So with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for the business, everybody.
Thank you, Rob.
One more real quick question. So now that you got a green light here, what timetable are we looking at?
Well, I don't know if you guys do purchase orders or how you sign documents, but I can send, someone should send me who I should contact with a
Contact Jess.
I'll send the contract. your
Send
way.
everything to her.
And then we can get started on it within the next week or two. I can get my design team pulled off and get started on that.
And the whole process should take,
A good month,
okay, 50 days?
yeah, easily. I mean, this is a substantial amount of work.
Oh, no, that's okay. I just wanted to, and
I mean, one of the things that we're going to bump into as well is, you know, we might be ready to move and do everything, but once I get this information to the lighting reps and say, hey, I want this, you know, they could have a 2-week turnaround before they actually give me something back. So it could take, you know, that could add it to 2 months, but I do think, you know, it needs to be done right. So we need to get the right stuff, and then to push them to say, hey, I want some free demos. You know, I'm kind of counting on them giving us 2 10-foot sticks of whatever this is, in hopes that they're going to sell hundreds of feet of this. They should hopefully give us some of that. We would temporarily put that up for you guys to review.
I think it's fair to say with a potential $250,000 budget, you've got time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's no rush here.
All right, thank
exactly.
you, guys.
All right, thanks.
You don't have it on yet, though?
What's that?
You don't have it on yet?
October.
Oh, sure. I'm not gonna pay for it, though.
Hold on.
16 is when the replacement lights went in. So there was a press release that went out, you guys did the work in November, and they did it 3 nights overnight is what, at least the press release that you did. And then you found sections that were poor, and so you came back to the bid board. That was $3,500 plus the $2,000 to do the CAD drawings. So you estimated $5,000, it was $5,500. And in 17, you guys did that. So October of 17 is when those sections were replaced.
Thank you.
So my memory is not failing.
Yeah, it's
All right,
spot on.
sorry. All right, thank you.
Thanks,
everybody.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Okay, item 3, Riverwalk update. I don't know if that's Jess or Jay.
Jay.
I'll do it. Pretty exciting stuff. The Riverwalk is underway. We've been talking about it for a long, long time. And the plan is I think all of you know, to mirror the Riverwalk on the east side, on the west side. The east side was done intentionally first because it was less complicated, not without issue, but certainly less complicated than the utility, I'll say, mess that is currently in place and in the process of being replaced on the west side. So the spider web, every time somebody had a locate called in on the west side, you saw tons of different colors and the spider web of messiness. That's all being aligned in a 1-foot trench, and We Energies and Charter and AT&T are working together to do that. That's a very expensive project. It's a $1.3 million project just to replace the utilities without ever getting to Riverwalk construction. So we're calling that phase 1. That project is underway. We have the funding for it. Phase 2 of the Riverwalk is planned for construction year of next year. We're hoping to bid that this fall and build that project in 2022. Phase 2 is from the Pocket Park Bridge south to Veterans Park on the west side, as I mentioned. So we are still short of funds for that construction. We have some funding in place. We had I'll share this with the group because I think it's important. We had a successful stewardship grant that was awarded for the construction. So for phase 2, $661,000, and anything over $250,000 goes before the Joint Committee on Finance at the state level, and they have to bless it before it goes on. And if any member of Joint Committee on Finance chooses to object to the project, it goes into project purgatory and stays there until the committee chooses to or not take it out of that. This happened to us on the east side when we received a large grant for the east side construction. Somebody objected to it, a northern legislator, and it went into this purgatory, and Senator Strobel was able to help us get it out. He serves on the Joint Committee on Finance, and we took a $100,000 haircut off that grant award for the east project. I don't know what's going to happen. Senator Strobel and I have had a couple of conversations, but if any of you know him, talk to him. He still serves on that committee and hopefully can be influential. I've encouraged him to be. He shared with me this is a tough time to be talking about stewardship and budget, and I get all of that. This isn't these funds aren't from prospective budget year, they're already budgeted funds. So it's, I mean, to me, it feels like it's a little unfair. We scored really, really high. It's a great project, and the state recognizes that. The state DNR recognizes that, and that's why we were awarded such a large grant. But it's held up. So we're short just over $1 million for the construction of phase 2, so that Pocket Park South to Veterans, and that just over $1 million includes receiving the full funding of the grant. Or obviously, we're short a lot more if we either lose the grant or if we take a haircut on the grant again.
When do they have to make a decision by, Jay, do you know?
They don't.
They don't?
Yeah, they don't.
Okay.
They don't. It just, once it's objected to, it goes into this pot over here and stays there until the committee chooses to bring it back.
So do we know what the objection was?
We don't. And we don't know who objected. If they don't have to, they can do it anonymously. It's really a frustrating process. It's our part of the process, and we knew that going in. I was hopeful. I had conversations with Senator Strobel in advance, hoping that he could help it not get objected to. I don't know how that all works, but it got objected to, and that's the status. So then, exciting news for phase 3. Phase 2 is construction year 2022. Ideally, construction year of phase 3 is 2023, and that would be from the Pocket Bridge north, including the 2 parking lots. So we have closed on the BMO lot. 2.5 years of negotiating with the owners of that bank building was crazy, long, and frustrating, but it's done. We own the lot. It's really exciting for the Riverwalk and for downtown to have that as public parking locked up for the future. And we're about to close on the Trail Camp property to just the south of that. So a smaller portion of the Trail Camp lot, the Ziegler building parking lot, will be part of the Riverwalk Project 2, and we're set to close any day now on that. That's phase 3 construction year scheduled for 2023. We do not have any funding in place for that. The likelihood of applying for another large stewardship grant is not good, because if we got objected 1 year and the second time I don't know, we might not even get out of the water on the third one if we apply for a large grant again. But we do have a potential funding source, as the TID was approved last night. The brewery project is crazy exciting. Thanks, Justice, for leadership on the council to help get that through. Thank you, bid board, for your letter of support. That absolutely helped. That was distributed last night to the council, along with some other letters that came in. A really exciting project. I don't know if I need to talk to the details again, but it's taking down the old brewery, currently assessed at $700,000, and replacing it with a $30 million building that's going to produce a ton of excitement, energy, attachment to downtown. A developer that's motivated to develop in West Bend. They're really excited about being a part of downtown and the downtown scene, and bringing new residents to all of our businesses downtown. So hopefully it's crazy successful for the bid. They want to get going right away. They're talking about a June 1 construction, so you might see that building coming down very, very soon. That building in the that TIF creation in the project plan has $2.2 million for the Riverwalk Phase 3 for the assistance for the construction of that. That's going to cost more than that, but a portion of that money will be paid for from that TID according to the project plan. And so your continued support of the Riverwalk will be important for the council to know that, because just because it's in the project plan doesn't mean it's absolutely happening. It has to be still budgeted for, go through the city process and get approved. But again, your continued influence of the mayor and council members will be vital to get those funds from the project plan. And that's going to be really, really fast. The other exciting thing, 2023 is going to come like that regarding construction year. So it'll be designed, it's being designed right now, and then bid out and constructed in 23. The other exciting part of that project plan is $1.5 million and Mike already mentioned this, for the Main Street reconstruction. That project all in, including water and sewer, is north of $3 million. So the $1.5 million that's in the project plan is, to pay for a portion thereof, but the utilities will pay for a portion, and the city budget will pay for a portion. You guys might be motivated to pay for a portion of it regarding some of the amenities. We've talked about those in the past. So the way I see the timeline for that project going is discussions and maybe high-level design, if that's the right term, in 2021. So this year, the Transportation Committee is going to have, the subcommittee of this group is going to have to get meeting again and have those tough conversations about which bump outs stay, which bump outs go, if there are any of that, bricks on the sidewalks or concrete sidewalks, portrait versus red, all of that fun stuff that's been talked about over the years will need to be like discussed and decided on in 2021. And then the formal design for the road project and the sidewalk and lights and that kind of fun stuff will be done in 2022 for a construction year of 2023. So that, again, that project needs your support and your continued motivation, if you will, to get that project done, because we don't have a funding source for it otherwise without the TID. Now that the TID is underway and the building's going to be constructed, we'll know what those values are of the TID and all of the securities. You might have read some stuff online recently, but all of those securities are built into the developer's agreement, which was approved last night. So the risk is on the developer. The developer has to pay the shortfall payment if there is one. If his building doesn't produce, they have to pay for the public infrastructure first before they get any incentive. They're sitting in third position. So I'm biased. It's part of it. The city did a great job in negotiating the developer's agreement with the developer. It's rock solid. It puts them in third place. Yes, if they build a $38 million building instead of a $30 million building, they will receive a significant incentive payment back, and it's all their taxes. So the taxes generated from this, explain quickly what TID is, but we receive $14,000 now on that $700,000 project. We'll receive north of $500,000. If it goes to full value, we'll receive $650,000 annually instead of $14,000 from the taxes generated just from that building, those two buildings. And those funds all come to the city to pay for these two public projects that I just mentioned, the Riverwalk Phase 3 and Main Street reconstruction first, and then money's left over goes back to the developer to meet their municipal revenue, our municipal revenue obligation to them, assuming that there's money left. Questions?
2022 comes faster than 2023. Phase 2, you mentioned we're $1 million short, is that correct?
Correct.
So that gets us from gravel to surface, right? What if we don't get the $1 million by 2022? Is we just leave it gravel until we do that fundraising, or will it be done in pieces if we get a $500,000, or are you going to wait till you have the whole $1 million?
All great questions to which I don't have answers, unfortunately. I'm hopeful that we secure the $1 million between now and construction year 2022. We're committed to the project. I think the city council is committed to the project. Today's election day, so we have new aldermen coming in. It always means new votes and new ideas, but I know that the community, it's very rare that we get to, as bureaucrats, get to do something that the entire community loves, and Riverwalk East is one of those projects. That I've not heard a negative comment about, well, maybe you should have built 7th first, but other than that, 7th is getting done this year, so we can take that off the table. Everybody's super excited about the Riverwalk on the east side, and mirroring it on the west side should be nothing but positive as well. So I'm hopeful that we can get to the funding source.
One last question. You've got an awesome track record of getting grants. I wish I would stop eating this mask. Are you aware of any stewardship grant through a historical district that would fund LED lighting? I'm dead serious, actually.
Yeah. I'm not, but it doesn't mean we won't look and try to pursue that.
Okay.
We have a great grant writer on staff with Jess and Cindy Lyons and our Parks Project Manager, both excellent grant writers and very resourceful, so we'll keep that in mind.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Item 4, the landscape quotes.
So within your packet, we'll start with Scott's Landscaping. The costs are the same as last year. This is continued services to spray for weeds throughout the warm months. So you can take a look here. So one page is spraying in the beds after the mulch is put in on our cleanup day, which is May 17th. And then the other page is spraying the sidewalks throughout April through October. I haven't heard of any complaints in their work. So in the past, I've heard good things. It seems to look really nice. So I don't know if you have any questions at all about this, or otherwise nothing has changed from last year.
Can I make a motion to approve it?
Yep.
All right?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Great.
Second one is roots and branches.
Roots and branches, so this is sort of the second part of what our landscaping budget is composed of. So roots and branches, we partner with them throughout the year to do a number of things, mainly replacing those baskets 3 times. This last year we added the mums, and they did some winter sort of themed baskets in advance of the tree lighting, which looked really great. We also have the Adopt-A-Plot annuals that their volunteers manage throughout the summer, and so we pay for the flowers that go into that process. They also water, those plots and the baskets. I also have in here budgeted with them $750 for the flowers that some property owners will purchase in April once we get the list of what's available. And they manage their own sort of gardens and plots outside their space that the Roots and Branches volunteers don't do, but we still pay for the flowers. And then there's, some mulch and soil that's always needed every year to keep things looking nice.
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Great.
Item 5, the annual report / bid survey.
All right, so this is the last item for today. Last time we met, we had talked a little bit about the marketing committee that had met in the end of February, and what was asked to be put together was an annual report, sort of summary document, and we had a sample of one that was done for a department. And so I put together this piece here for you, as well as a letter that would go out either in print or maybe just email form. We have a lot of emails of everyone in the bid that would, let them know what went on in 2020 and what their assessment dollars go toward and how you carefully manage those funds. So this is just for your review. Any comments? Happy to make changes. This is part 1 of what was discussed of getting word out about what goes on at the bid each year, like an annual report, and then potentially moving forward with a survey in the future, in which I did meet with Mike, and we spoke on the phone at least to talk a little bit about what that could look like, a broad survey to help prepare for maybe the 2022 budget year, and maybe working with Paul Robach to help facilitate that for us, as he's a professional in his field, and I did have a discussion with him. He would be interested in coming to a meeting and doing that for us. So.
Oh,
So I guess before that, are there any questions or changes to the annual report summary and letter?
Looks great, has very good information.
Yeah.
Yeah, terrific.
So just real quickly on the survey, I've been talking to Jess about this. I brought it up with Adam in the past. I think that we need to do a really encompassing survey, kind of a 2-phase approach. Phase 1 would be to the building owners who are actually paying the tax dollars. And really find out, 1, if they know what we're about, 2, what the money's going for, and 3, what do they see as the vision for downtown, as what do they want from the bid. And then from that, phase 2 would be a survey that focuses on the businesses that are within the bid, and find out what they're looking for and what they want and where we should be focusing and where we should be going. The concern I expressed with Jess is I really think that this is a really important thing that we need to do. And, we're spending money on getting a study done to figure out the cost of the lights. I really firmly believe that we should be, whoever we get to do this, I think we need to get an outside company that specs instead of talking about the bid, you should be talking about the business improvement district and using that terminology as opposed to the bid, because everybody's like, what is the bid? You know, so we haven't done a really good job over the years of really explaining what we're about. I had a conversation with 2 older people yesterday about, you know, the bid should be, they're one of the stops, and it's happening, you know, Jay brought it up with what's going on going forward, and I'm happy to hear it, is one of the stops should be, when something happens downtown, the bid should be talked to. Hey, what does the bid think about this? And not that they're gonna say yes or no because of our opinion, but, you know, we're paying a lot of money not only into the bid, but we're paying our tax dollars into the city, and I think, you know, we need to get more, I don't even know, I don't want to say viable because we're viable, but just looked upon as the authority of what's going on downtown. And I think to do that, we need to have some really good information from the bid membership, which is the building owners and the businesses are both members of the bid. And so I think it's important that we survey both of them independently and find out what they're thinking. And like I said, I have no idea what that cost is, but that's what this is about, and I'd like to put that on the forefront and get this going for 21, especially with what Jay talked about with 22, 23. Part of this should be, what do you guys see as your vision for downtown and redoing a Main Street?
Is that something that Lobach is?
I don't know. You know, I think Jess and I need to have a, you know, conversation with him and find out at what depth he can do, or do we need to get somebody that this is really their job? I don't know, you know, what level Paul can do. He's done some really good stuff for the city and for the bid, so it's a possibility that he can, and that would be great if we could, because it would be a lot cheaper.
It's got merit, that's for sure.
I agree though, Mike. I mean, we're a board that is making decisions on behalf of a group of people that we don't even know if they care or not.
Right.
You know what I mean? We get, you know, a few people to show up each month, which is great. Thank you for showing up. But we are dealing with a lot of money, and it would be nice to know that we're doing what we think is correct.
Right.
You know?
And we've never done it, so there's no better time than now. There's a lot of really exciting stuff happening, and we just need to find out what people are thinking.
I think the whole conversation is really, really good. So we have a document for perception management, and now we'll get perceptions from the owners and the businesses.
Right.
Some, you know, perception's reality sometimes, so I think it's really, will be really good information for us to
Yeah.
look forward.
So I will work with Jess. You know, we've talked about a bunch of stuff, and I've been crazy busy, and she wanted to wait till the election was over, and the brewery project was kind of behind them, and so, you know, we got a lot on our plates, but I think it's important that we, you know, continue this process forward. So if everybody's in agreement, you know, conceptually, we'll hopefully be able to come back at the next meeting with some answers and some suggestions of where we head. Everybody okay with that?
Great.
Okay. If there's nothing else on the annual report, if you have agenda items, just in the interest of time, get them to Jess or get them to me. And with that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.